The massive view screen in the Galactic Council chamber flickered to life, broadcasting to over 300 trillion beings across the known universe. Ambassador Chen Wei stood in chains at the center of the ornate platform, her diplomatic uniform torn and bloodied, but her spine remained straight. Behind her, 70,000 human colonists knelt in rows that stretched beyond the camera's view, their hands bound, heads bowed under the scorching twin suns of Kepler 442b. Emperor Zarmoth's crystalline form shimmered as he descended from his floating throne. His species, the Krillians, had ruled the Galactic Empire for 10,000 years. They were beings of pure energy, wrapped in shells of living crystal, and they had never known defeat. The Emperor's voice resonated through subspace, reaching every corner of civilized space. "Behold, citizens of the Empire, what happens to those who refuse our generous offer of vassalage?" His words dripped with contempt. These humans, these primitive mammals who have barely mastered faster-than-light travel, dared to reject our protection. They claimed their independence was worth more than their lives. Ambassador Chen lifted her head. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye, but her voice carried clear and strong. "Humanity will never bow to tyrants. You can kill us, but you cannot kill what we represent." The Emperor's laugh was like breaking glass. "Such dramatic words from such a young species. You have existed for merely 300,000 of your years. We have ruled stars since before your sun was born. Watch now, primitive creatures of the galaxy, as we demonstrate the price of defiance." Across human space, billions watched in horror. On Earth, in the Pentagon's war room, General Marcus Thompson gripped the edge of the tactical table so hard his knuckles turned white. The Joint Chiefs stood in stunned silence as the live feed continued. President Sarah Martinez had tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "How long until the fleet can reach them?" 3 weeks at maximum burn, Madam President," Admiral Rebecca Foster replied. "But they'll be dead, I know." The president's jaw clenched. "Begin Operation Prometheus, all restrictions lifted." Back on Kepler 442b, the executions began. The Krillian guards moved with mechanical precision, their plasma weapons vaporizing humans one by one. The Emperor had orchestrated this for maximum psychological impact. Not a mass killing, but a slow, methodical extermination designed to break the spirit of anyone who watched. Ambassador Chen was forced to watch as her people died. Men, women, children, colonists who had come to Kepler 442b to build a new life among the stars, teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers. Each death was broadcast in excruciating detail to every screen in the galaxy. "You see?" Emperor Zarmoth addressed the camera directly. "Humans break so easily. They scream, they beg, they die like any other lesser species. And yet they dare speak of freedom and dignity. Where is their dignity now?" But something strange was happening. The humans weren't begging. As death approached each colonist, they stood up. They looked directly at their executioners and spoke the same words. "From Earth we came, to stars we return. Humanity endures." The Emperor's crystalline form flickered with annoyance. This wasn't the reaction he had expected. Fear, yes. Despair, certainly, but not this quiet defiance, this strange unity in the face of death. On Earth, something ancient was awakening. In the deep bunkers beneath Cheyenne Mountain, technicians activated systems that had been dormant since the Third World War. Across the planet, manufacturing plants that had been producing civilian goods switched to military production. The entire industrial might of humanity began to pivot toward a single purpose. In orbit around Mars, Admiral Chen Liu, Ambassador Chen's brother, stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution. The dreadnought was one of only 12 in the human fleet, a ship designed not for exploration or defense, but for something humanity had hoped never to need again: total war. "All hands! This is the Admiral." His voice echoed through the ship. "By now you've seen what's happening on Kepler 442b. Those are our people, our families, our future being murdered for the entertainment of tyrants." He paused, his next words carrying the weight of history. "President Martinez has authorized Operation Prometheus. We're going to war." The bridge erupted in activity. Officers who had trained for this moment their entire careers moved with grim efficiency. The Retribution's AI, Athena, began calculating jump coordinates, while weapons systems came online. But Earth's response would not be what the Galactic Empire expected. Humanity had learned hard lessons from its bloody history. They knew that rage alone would not win this war. What they needed was something the Empire had never faced: human innovation unleashed without moral restraint. In hidden research facilities, scientists dusted off projects that had been deemed too dangerous for peacetime. Weapons that violated every treaty humanity had signed with itself, biological agents that could adapt to any species, nanotechnology swarms that could devour entire planets, artificial intelligences programmed without the safeguards that kept them servants rather than conquerors. The execution on Kepler 442b continued for hours. 50,000 dead, 60,000. The Emperor savored each death, occasionally pausing to mock humanity's weakness. He didn't notice that across human space, recruitment centers were being overwhelmed by volunteers. He didn't see the grim determination settling over an entire species. Colonel James Martinez of the United States Marine Corps stood before his battalion. These weren't ordinary Marines. They were members of the Orbital Drop Shock Battalion, trained to deploy from space directly into combat zones. Each soldier was enhanced with the latest in human military technology: powered armor that could shrug off plasma fire, neural implants that allowed instantaneous communication, weapons that could punch through a meter of solid steel. "Marines!" The colonel's voice was hard as granite. "You've all seen what's happening. Those are American citizens being murdered out there. Human beings. Our brothers and sisters." He paused, meeting the eyes of his soldiers. "The President has asked me what the Marines need to respond to this atrocity. I told her we need just one thing: a target." The roar from 800 enhanced warriors shook the walls of the assembly hall. As the number of dead on Kepler 442b approached 70,000, Ambassador Chen was brought forward again. She could barely stand, having been forced to watch for hours as her people died. The Emperor circled her like a predator savoring its prey. "You spoke of humanity enduring," he mocked. "Look at your people now. Soon you will join them, and your species will learn its place in our empire. Those who survive will serve. This is the natural order." Chen raised her head one final time. Despite everything, she smiled. "You want to know a secret about humans, Emperor? We're not special because we're strong or smart or brave. We're special because we're vindictive. We remember every slight, every injury, every injustice, and we pay them back with interest." The Emperor's form pulsed with amusement. "Empty threats from a dying woman." "Not a threat," Chen said quietly. "A promise. You've killed 70,000 humans today, but there are 12 billion more on Earth alone, and every single one of them just became your enemy. You think you've won, but you've just signed your empire's death warrant." The plasma beam that ended Ambassador Chen's life was almost merciful compared to what had come before. The Emperor turned to the camera one last time. "Let this be a lesson to all who would defy the Galactic Empire. Submission or death. There are no other choices." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, most species reacted with fear and submission. The demonstration had achieved its purpose for them. But in human space, a different reaction was taking place. On Earth, President Martinez stood before the United Nations of Humanity. Gone was the peaceful leader who had advocated for diplomatic solutions. In her place stood a woman who had watched 70,000 of her people murdered for entertainment. "Citizens of Earth, citizens of all human colonies," she began. "Today we witnessed an atrocity that will echo through history. The Galactic Empire believes they have taught us a lesson about power. They are wrong. They have taught us a lesson about evil, and evil must be opposed." She paused, her next words measured and clear. "As of this moment, Earth is at war with the Galactic Empire. We will not stop until every human death has been avenged. We will not negotiate. We will not show mercy. They wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson. Let us teach them one instead, that humanity is not prey. We are the predators they should have feared." The mobilization that followed was unlike anything in human history. Every resource was directed toward the war effort. Children learned to build weapons in school. The elderly came out of retirement to work in factories. Scientists shared their most guarded secrets. Nations that had been enemies for centuries put aside their differences. But the true horror of humanity's response was yet to come. Deep in secure facilities, projects with innocuous names like Garden and Rainfall were being prepared. The Galactic Empire had made a fundamental error. They had judged humanity by their technology level, not by their potential for destruction. On Luna Base, Master Sergeant Ava Rodriguez addressed her squad of Marine raiders. These were the elite of the elite, soldiers who had been enhanced beyond normal human limits. Their powered armor made them look more like machines than men, bristling with weapons and defensive systems. "The enemy thinks we're weak because we're young," she said. "They think we're primitive because we've only been in space for 2 centuries. They're about to learn that humans didn't become the apex predator on Earth by being nice. We did it by being the most dangerous thing in any room we entered." Her squad's battle cry echoed through the base. "First to fight, last to fall." In the depths of space, human ships began to gather. Not just military vessels, but civilian ships retrofitted with weapons. Cargo haulers became missile platforms. Mining ships were converted into planet crackers. Even pleasure yachts were armed and crewed by volunteers. Admiral Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the fleet assemble. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Operation Prometheus is go. May God forgive us for what we're about to do." The first phase of humanity's response was about to begin. The Galactic Empire had killed 70,000 humans to make a point. They had no idea that they had just awakened something that had been sleeping since humanity first looked at the stars, the same savage determination that had allowed a weak, hairless ape to conquer an entire planet. The Marines were coming, and hell was coming with them. 3 weeks after the massacre on Kepler 442b, the first human warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zorvax system. This was a minor Imperial outpost, home to a military depot and communication relay that served the outer territories. The Krillian commander, Varjan, detected the incoming ships with mild interest. 30 human vessels, his lieutenant reported. Primitive design. Minimal shielding. Their weapons appear to be projectile-based. The officer's tone carried disbelief. "Commander, they're using chemical propulsion and metal slugs." Varjan's crystalline form pulsed with amusement. "The insects come seeking revenge. How touching. Activate the defense grid. Let us end this quickly." The human fleet spread out in a formation that seemed almost random to Krillian tactical computers. The lead ship, a modified cargo hauler called the Pittsburgh Steel, broadcast a single message. "Attention Galactic Empire forces. You have one chance to surrender. This offer expires in 60 seconds. The commander's laughter echoed through his bridge. "Surrender to them. Target the lead vessel and fire. Show them the power of real technology." Plasma beams lanced out from the orbital platforms, each carrying enough energy to vaporize a small mountain. They struck the Pittsburgh Steel dead center. The Krillian bridge crew prepared to watch the ship disintegrate. Instead, the plasma splashed harmlessly off a barrier that their sensors couldn't even detect. The human ship continued forward, unharmed. What? How? Varjan's confusion was shared by his entire crew. The 60 seconds expired. The Pittsburgh Steel's cargo bay doors opened, and something emerged. Not missiles or fighters, but tiny pods no larger than a human fist. Thousands of them, spreading out like a cloud of metallic spores. "Point defense systems, destroy those, whatever they are," the commander ordered. Laser batteries opened fire, destroying hundreds of the pods. But there were too many, and they were too small. The surviving pods reached the orbital platforms and attached themselves to the hull. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the platforms began to dissolve. The pods were carrying humanity's first terror weapon, gray goo, self-replicating nanomachines programmed with a simple directive: convert all non-human technology into more nanomachines. The Krillians watched in horror as their supposedly impregnable defense stations were eaten away from the inside out. "Impossible," Varjan muttered. "The energy requirements alone, the programming complexity." His science officer was frantically analyzing the threat. "Commander, these nanomachines are using our own power systems against us. They're designed to specifically target our technology. This isn't random destruction. It's precisely engineered extinction." Within minutes, the orbital defenses were gone. The nanomachines, having consumed all available Krillian technology, deactivated and dispersed into harmless dust. The human fleet moved toward the planet below. "Evacuate the surface," Varjan ordered. "All personnel to the shelters." But humanity wasn't targeting the shelters. Marine drop pods launched from the assault carriers, streaking through the atmosphere like meteors. Each pod contained a single Marine in powered armor, falling from orbit at terminal velocity. Master Sergeant Rodriguez was first to hit the ground. Her armor's inertial dampeners absorbed the impact that would have liquefied an unprotected human. She rose from the crater her landing had created, weapons already tracking targets. "Raiders, sound off," she commanded through the neural link. "Raider 2, touchdown. Raider 3, on the ground. Raider 4, good to go." 800 Marines landed across the military depot in a perfectly coordinated assault. But they weren't here to destroy. They were here to send a message. Rodriguez moved through the Krillian base like death incarnate. Her armor's strength amplification allowed her to tear through walls meant to withstand orbital bombardment. Her weapons, primitive by Galactic Empire standards, were devastatingly effective. The Krillians had shielded against energy weapons, but humanity had perfected the art of throwing metal very, very fast. A squad of Krillian soldiers rounded the corner, their plasma rifles raised. Rodriguez didn't even slow down. Her armor's AI calculated trajectories in nanoseconds. She raised her Gauss rifle and fired 3 times. Magnetically accelerated tungsten rounds punched through personal shields as if they didn't exist. The Krillians fell, their crystalline forms shattered beyond repair. "Remember Kepler!" she roared, the battle cry taken up by Marines across the base. "Remember the 70,000! The Krillians were warriors who had conquered 100 species, but they had never faced anything like enraged human Marines. The Imperials fought with energy weapons and shield technology. The humans fought with brutal efficiency and weapons designed to kill, not subdue. Private Chen, no relation to the murdered ambassador, just another soldier seeking vengeance, burst through a reinforced door to find a room full of Krillian technicians. They raised their hands in surrender, their forms pulsing with fear. "Please," one said through a translator, "we are non-combatants. We surrender." Chen remembered the children on Kepler 442b, the families, the way the Emperor had laughed as they died. His finger tightened on the trigger. "Chen, stand down." Rodriguez's voice cut through his rage. "We're not them. Secure the prisoners." This was the discipline that would make humanity terrifying. Not random violence, but controlled, directed fury. The Marines took the base in less than an hour, capturing hundreds of Krillian personnel. They could have killed them all. Instead, they did something worse. They put them on trial. In the base's main assembly hall, a military tribunal was convened. The Krillian commander was brought forward in chains, forced to kneel where days before his own people had knelt on Kepler 442b. "Varjan of the Krillian Empire," Colonel Martinez read from his datapad, "you are charged with crimes against humanity, specifically providing material support to the regime that murdered 70,000 human civilians. How do you plead?" "This is absurd!" Varjan's form flared with indignation. "You have no authority here. The Galactic Empire does not recognize your laws." "The Galactic Empire killed our people on live broadcast," Martinez replied coldly. "They forfeit any claim to legal protection. The tribunal finds you guilty. The sentence is life imprisonment at hard labor. You will spend the remainder of your days helping to rebuild what your empire destroyed." One by one, the Krillian personnel were tried, sentenced, and loaded onto prison transports. But the real message wasn't in the trials, it was in what happened next. The Marines planted charges throughout the base, then evacuated to a safe distance. The explosions that followed were visible from orbit. But when the smoke cleared, something remained. In the center of the devastation, constructed from the rubble of the base, stood a monument. 70,000 metal pillars, each inscribed with the name of a victim from Kepler 442b. Rodriguez stood before the monument, her helmet removed, tears streaming down her face. "We remember," she said quietly. "We remember each of you." The human fleet prepared to leave, but not before broadcasting their own message to the Galactic Empire. President Martinez appeared on every screen in Imperial space, her face hard as stone. "Emperor Zarmoth, you wanted to teach the galaxy a lesson about power. Allow us to return the favor. This base was your first loss. It will not be your last. For every human life taken, we will take 100 of yours. For every world you've enslaved, we will liberate 10. You called us primitive. You're about to learn that primitive doesn't mean weak. It means we haven't forgotten how to wage real war." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You have one chance to surrender. Abdicate your throne, submit to trial for your crimes, and we might show mercy to your people. Refuse, and we will take your empire apart piece by piece until nothing remains but the memory of your mistake. You have 70,000 hours to decide, one for each life you took. Choose wisely." The broadcast ended. Across the Galactic Empire, panic began to spread. The attack on Zorvax had been surgical, precise, and utterly devastating. If humans could do this to a military base, what could they do to civilian populations? In his throne room, Emperor Zarmoth raged. "Impossible! They are insects, primitives! How dare they threaten us?" His advisors were less certain. "My lord," his chief scientist said carefully, "their technology may be primitive, but their application is innovative. These nanomachines, their kinetic weapons, the way they coordinate their attacks, it's unlike anything we've prepared for." "Then prepare," the Emperor roared. "Mobilize the entire fleet. Conscript every able warrior. We will crush these humans and salt their worlds until nothing can grow." But while the Emperor raged, humanity prepared. The attack on Zorvax had been a probe, a test of Imperial defenses. The real offensive was yet to come. On Earth, in underground bunkers that stretched for miles, production lines ran 24 hours a day. Humanity was building a war machine unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Not advanced by Imperial standards, but brutally effective. The United States Marine Corps had been chosen to lead the ground operations for a simple reason. They had perfected the art of winning against superior enemies. From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, from Iwo Jima to Afghanistan, Marines had a tradition of achieving the impossible. General Thompson addressed the assembled Marine Division commanders. "Gentlemen, ladies, we're about to undertake the largest military operation in human history. Operation Prometheus calls for the systematic liberation of every world under imperial control. That's 3,000 planets, 60 species, and approximately 40 trillion enslaved beings." "Sir," General Patterson raised a hand, "our entire Marine Corps is only 2 million strong. How can we possibly—" "We're not doing it alone," Thompson interrupted. "Every liberated species will be given a choice. Join us or stand aside. We're betting that 300 years of imperial rule has created a lot of beings who want payback. The Marines will be the tip of the spear, but behind us will come the greatest liberation army ever assembled." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Human-controlled systems were marked in blue, a tiny cluster compared to the vast red of the Empire. But there were other colors, too. Yellow for potential allies, green for systems with active resistance movements, purple for worlds where the Empire's control was already weak. "The Emperor thinks this is a war between humans and Krillians," Thompson continued. "He's wrong. This is a war between freedom and tyranny, and we're going to win it the human way, by being too stubborn to lose." The Marine commanders studied the display, already planning their campaigns. Each knew they were probably looking at their own death. The odds were impossible, the enemy vastly superior in numbers and technology. But they were Marines. Impossible was just another word for Tuesday. In the depths of space, the human fleet continued to grow. Ships arrived from every human colony, crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return home. But perhaps the most terrifying development was happening in the research labs. Dr. Sarah Chen, sister to the murdered ambassador, stood before a containment unit that held humanity's second terror weapon. Inside, suspended in a magnetic field, was a small vial of clear liquid. "Project Garden is complete," she announced to the assembled military officials. "This is a weaponized virus designed to target Krillian physiology specifically. It's 100% lethal, with a transmission rate that makes our worst pandemic look like a cold." General Thompson studied the vial with a mix of awe and horror. "Can they cure it?" "Not in time," Dr. Chen replied coldly. "Their medicine is based on energy manipulation. This is pure biology. By the time they understand how it works, half their population will be dead." "And the other species in the Empire?" "Completely immune. We've tested it extensively. This will only kill Krillians." The general was quiet for a long moment. Using biological weapons violated every treaty humanity had ever signed. It was a line that, once crossed, could never be uncrossed. But then he remembered the broadcast. 70,000 civilians murdered for entertainment. "How soon can you deploy it?" "The weapons are already loaded onto stealth ships. Just give the word." Thompson closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were hard as flint. "Dr. Chen, I'm authorizing Project Garden for defensive deployment only. If they use weapons of mass destruction against human populations, we respond in kind." "Make sure your brother would be proud." She nodded, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "He would understand. We're not the monsters here, but we'll become monsters if that's what it takes to stop them." Across human space, similar scenes played out. Weapons too terrible for peacetime were prepared for war. Scientists who had dedicated their lives to helping humanity turned their genius toward destruction. Artists became propagandists. Teachers became drill instructors. Children learned to hate an enemy they had never seen. This was humanity's greatest strength and most terrible weakness, the ability to unite completely against a common enemy. The Galactic Empire had wanted to cow humanity into submission. Instead, they had created 12 billion soldiers. The Marine Forward Operating Base on Titan was a hive of activity. Newly enhanced soldiers trained in low gravity, learning to fight in environments no human was meant to survive. The enhancement process was voluntary but irreversible. Cybernetic implants that merged man and machine, genetic modifications that pushed human physiology to its limits, neural upgrades that allowed instant communication and coordination. Corporal Lisa Martinez, the president's daughter who had enlisted the day after the massacre, stood in line for her enhancements. The doctor tried one last time to dissuade her. "You understand that this is permanent? The neural implants alone will change how you think, how you perceive reality. You'll never be fully human again." Lisa thought of the children on Kepler 442b. "Doctor, after what I saw, I don't want to be fully human. I want to be whatever I need to be to make them pay." The procedure took 12 hours. When Lisa emerged, she was no longer the college student who had enlisted in rage. She was a weapon in human form, faster and stronger than any natural human, with a mind that could process battlefield information at superhuman speeds. She looked at her reflection and saw a stranger staring back. "How do you feel?" the doctor asked. Lisa flexed her enhanced muscles, felt the power flowing through her augmented body. Her neural implant connected her to the base's tactical network, and suddenly she could feel the presence of every other enhanced Marine, a web of shared consciousness that was both terrifying and exhilarating. "I feel like justice," she said. 10,000 light-years away, the first human stealth ships reached their targets. These weren't military installations, but shipping lanes, the arteries that kept the Galactic Empire functioning. The Empire was vast, its strength distributed across thousands of worlds. Humanity couldn't win through direct confrontation, so they would use another ancient human tactic, guerrilla warfare on a galactic scale. The stealth ship Revenge drifted silently through the void, its hull coated with materials that made it invisible to Imperial sensors. Captain John Smith, a name chosen specifically for its genericness, watched as a massive Krillian supply convoy passed nearby. 30 ships, his tactical officer reported, carrying food, medical supplies, and military equipment to the outer sectors. Destruction of this convoy will impact approximately 2 million Imperial citizens. Smith felt a moment of doubt. These weren't military targets. But then he remembered something his grandfather had told him about the ancient wars on Earth. In total war, there are no civilians, only enemies who haven't picked up weapons yet. "Deploy the mines," he ordered. The Revenge released its cargo, thousands of small, smart mines that attached themselves to the convoy ships like remoras. They would wait, dormant and undetectable, until the ships reached their destinations. Then they would detonate, destroying not just the ships but the infrastructure they were docked at. It was terrorism on an unimaginable scale. It was also exactly what humanity had learned from centuries of asymmetric warfare. You don't fight a stronger enemy on their terms. You make them afraid to leave their homes. The first mine detonated 3 days later at a supply depot in the Vega system. The explosion destroyed 6 ships and a significant portion of the station. The second went off an hour later, then the third, then dozens more across the Empire. Supply lines began to collapse. Fear spread faster than any virus. The Emperor's response was predictable, brutal retaliation against human colonies. But humanity had learned from Kepler 442b. The colonies had been evacuated, their populations dispersed among hidden bases and nomad fleets. The Krillian fleet arrived to find empty worlds, stripped of everything useful. Worse, they found traps. Entire cities rigged to explode when Imperial troops entered. Water supplies contaminated with nanomachines that would lie dormant in Krillian bodies until activated. Even the air was weaponized, tailored bacteria that would slowly break down the crystalline structure of their bodies. The Krillians began to realize a terrible truth. Humans didn't just wage war, they waged extinction. Back on Earth, President Martinez met with her cabinet for their daily briefing. The war had been raging for 3 months, and the toll was evident on everyone's faces. They had all lost someone in the massacre, and the weight of ordering the deaths of billions, even enemy billions, was crushing. "Status report," she said quietly. Defense Secretary Williams cleared his throat. "Operation Prometheus is proceeding on schedule. We've destroyed approximately 4% of Imperial military capacity and disrupted 30% of their supply lines. Marine raids have liberated 6 worlds, with local populations joining our cause. Current Allied forces number approximately 800 million. Our losses? 14,000 confirmed dead, 30,000 missing. The Krillians have adapted to some of our tactics. Their latest shields can stop kinetic weapons, and they're developing countermeasures to our nanomachines." "Expected." The president nodded. "What about Project Rainfall?" Dr. Chen, now serving as science advisor, pulled up a holographic display. "The antimatter production facilities are online. We can produce approximately 1 kilogram per day. Enough for city-killing weapons, not planet crackers." "I don't want to crack planets," Martinez said firmly. "We're liberators, not conquerors." "What about the other projects?" Project MindBridge is showing promise. Direct neural interface with liberated AI systems. Project Titan has produced the first batch of super heavy combat frames. And Project Exodus... Chen paused. "The Ark ships are ready. If we lose, humanity will survive among the stars." The president stood, looking out the window at the night sky. Somewhere among those stars, human soldiers were fighting and dying in humanity's name. "We're not going to lose," she said quietly, "because we can't afford to. Continue all operations, and may God have mercy on us all." The war was only beginning, but already the galaxy would never be the same. The Galactic Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology. Humanity was teaching them that there were worse things than fear, and that technology was only as good as the will to use it. The Marines were coming for the Emperor, and they were bringing hell with them. 1 year after the massacre on Kepler 442b, the impossible had become reality. The Galactic Empire, which had stood for 10,000 years, was crumbling. What had started as a punitive expedition against a primitive species had become a galactic revolution. Admiral Chen Liu stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, now flagship of a fleet that defied comprehension. Human ships flew alongside vessels from 40 different species. Former slaves piloted captured Imperial warships. Resistance fighters who had hidden for centuries emerged to join what they called the Liberation War. "Admiral, we're receiving confirmation from all fleet elements," Commander Torres reported. 8,000 ships ready for the assault on the Imperial core worlds. The Ashanti have committed their entire battle fleet. The Verdani sent their warrior monks. Even the Silicates are here. Chen Liu nodded, his face grim. The Silicates had been the first species enslaved by the Empire, their home world strip-mined to near destruction. Their joining the alliance meant that every conquered species had now turned against their oppressors. "Signal the Marines," he ordered. "Operation Damocles is go." Halfway across the galaxy, Master Sergeant Rodriguez, now Colonel Rodriguez, prepared for what would likely be her last mission. The years of combat had taken their toll. Her body was more machine than flesh now, rebuilt after dozens of battles. But her spirit remained unbroken. "Listen up, Marines," she addressed the assembled battalion. "Intelligence confirms the Emperor is hiding in his palace bunker on Krylos Prime. That bunker was designed to withstand a direct hit from a nova. Good thing we're not planning to knock." She activated a holographic display of the Imperial capital. The palace was a crystalline mountain, beautiful and impregnable. But humans had learned long ago that every fortress had a weakness. The Ashanti resistance has been working as slaves in the palace for 300 years. They've mapped every tunnel, every power conduit, every weakness. We're going in through the waste processing systems. It'll be dirty, dangerous, and probably suicidal. Any questions? Lance Corporal Lisa Martinez raised her hand. The president's daughter had become one of the most decorated Marines in the Corps, her enhancement allowing her to perform feats that seemed impossible even by enhanced human standards. Just one, Colonel. Do we take prisoners? Rodriguez's smile was cold. The Emperor killed 70,000 civilians on live broadcast. You do the math, Marine. The assault began with deception. The massive Allied fleet jumped into the Krylos system in a standard attack formation, drawing the Imperial defenses forward. Thousands of ships engaged in a battle that lit up the void with energy discharges visible from the planet's surface. But this was a feint. The real attack came from within. Across Krylos Prime, slaves who had served the Krylians for generations revealed their true purpose. They weren't just slaves, they were soldiers, trained in secret, waiting for this moment. The uprising began in the industrial sectors and spread like wildfire. In the confusion, 12 Marine stealth shuttles slipped through the planet's defenses. They landed in the toxic swamps that surrounded the capital, areas deemed so worthless that they weren't even monitored. The Marines emerged from their shuttles in environmental suits that could withstand conditions that would kill most life forms. "Move out," Rodriguez ordered. "We have 6 hours before the fleet has to withdraw." They moved through the swamps like ghosts, their suits adapting to the environment, masking their heat signatures and electronic emissions. The Ashanti guides led them to a massive pipe that expelled waste from the palace above. "This is it," their guide whispered. 3 miles straight up, then we're in the lower maintenance levels." Rodriguez looked at the pipe, filled with toxic sludge that could dissolve unprotected flesh in seconds. "Marines don't know the word impossible," she said. "Seal suits and move." They climbed for an hour, powered armor compensating for the gravity, internal systems recycling their air. Several times, massive flows of waste nearly swept them back down. Private Johnson lost his grip and fell, his suit rupturing. He dissolved before he hit the bottom. "Keep moving," Rodriguez commanded. They couldn't stop, couldn't mourn. Not yet. They emerged in a maintenance chamber deep beneath the palace. The Ashanti guide led them through passages that hadn't been used in centuries, avoiding the automated defenses that would have vaporized them instantly. "The Emperor's bunker is here," the guide pointed to a massive vault door. "But the defenses—" "Leave that to us," Rodriguez said. She nodded to her demolitions expert. "Martinez, you're up." Lisa Martinez moved forward, studying the door with enhanced senses that could detect energy patterns invisible to normal vision. The door was protected by shields that could withstand antimatter bombs. But shields designed to stop energy had a weakness. They did nothing against something moving slowly enough. She pulled out a small vial, one of only 12 in existence. Inside was a gray paste that seemed to move on its own. Dr. Chen's final creation, nanomachines programmed to convert any matter into a specific compound, antimatter. "Everyone back," Lisa ordered. "Way back." She smeared the paste on the door and activated it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door began to glow as matter converted to antimatter and immediately annihilated with the surrounding matter. The reaction was contained by the nanomachines, directed inward, eating through defenses that nothing else could breach. The explosion, when it came, shook the entire palace. Alarms screamed. Imperial guards rushed toward the breach. They found 800 Marines ready for war. The battle for the palace was brutal and short. Krylian guards, trained for ceremony more than combat, faced Marines who had spent a year perfecting the art of killing their species. Plasma weapons met kinetic shields. Energy beings met humans who had learned to fight in any environment. Rodriguez led the charge, her weapons singing death. Beside her, Martinez moved like a force of nature, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge energy beams and return fire with deadly accuracy. They carved through the palace like a blade through silk. They found Emperor Zarmoth in his throne room, surrounded by his personal guard. The Emperor's crystalline form blazed with power, his voice echoing with rage. "Insects! You dare defile my presence? I am eternal! I am!" Rodriguez shot him, not with a plasma weapon or an exotic energy beam, but with a simple kinetic round, a chunk of metal accelerated to significant fraction of light speed. It punched through his shields, through his crystalline body, and out the other side. The Emperor looked down at the hole in his chest, confusion replacing rage. "Impossible," he whispered. "I am divine." "You're dead," Rodriguez corrected. "This is for Kepler 442b. She fired again. And again. The Emperor's form shattered, fell, and went dark. 10,000 years of rule ended with 3 pulls of a trigger. The throne room fell silent. The Imperial Guards, seeing their god Emperor fall to primitive weapons, dropped their arms. Across the planet, the news spread faster than light. The Emperor was dead. The Empire was finished. But humanity's revenge wasn't complete. In orbit, Admiral Chen Liu received the signal. "The Emperor is dead. Proceeding to Phase 2. He turned to his communications officer. "Broadcast the trial." For the next 6 hours, every screen in the galaxy showed the trial of the Galactic Empire. Not just the Emperor, who was beyond justice, but the system he had built. Testimony from former slaves, footage of atrocities spanning millennia, evidence of genocide on a scale that defied comprehension. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty. The sentence was transformation. President Martinez appeared on the screen, older now, marked by the weight of decisions no human should have to make. "Citizens of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire is no more. But we will not replace one tyranny with another. Each world will choose its own path. Each species will determine its own future. Humanity offers partnership, not rule." She paused, her next words carrying the weight of history. "To the Krillians, you have a choice. Join the galactic community as equals, or face isolation. Your technology will be shared, your advantages removed. You will compete fairly or not at all. The age of empires is over. The age of cooperation begins now." Across the galaxy, celebrations erupted. On worlds that had known only slavery for generations, people looked at the sky with hope instead of fear. The liberation fleets moved from system to system, not conquering but freeing, not destroying but building. But on Earth, in a secure facility, the architects of victory gathered for a somber meeting. General Thompson, Admiral Chen Liu, Dr. Chen, President Martinez, the people who had turned humanity from prey to predator. "Final casualty report," Thompson said quietly. 2.3 million human dead. 800 billion enemy casualties, mostly Krillian. We've committed genocide. "They committed it first," Admiral Chen Liu said, but his words lacked conviction. "Does that make it right?" Dr. Chen asked. She looked at the vial in her hand, the virus that could have killed every Krillian in existence. She had created it, but never deployed it. That was something, at least. President Martinez stood at the window, watching the celebrations in the streets below. "We did what we had to do. We became monsters to stop monsters. History will judge whether we were right." "What happens now?" Thompson asked. "Now we rebuild," the president said. "We teach the galaxy that humans can create as well as destroy. We show them that our rage was born from love, love for those we lost. And we make sure this never happens again." 5 years later, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The Galactic Council, with representatives from every sapient species, governed through consensus rather than force. Technology flowed freely between worlds. Trade flourished. Art and culture experienced a renaissance as species learned from each other. Colonel Rodriguez, retired now, stood before the memorial on Kepler 442b. The planet had been restored, turned into a shrine for all who had died in the war. 70,000 names were carved in crystal, the first casualties of humanity's darkest hour. "We won," she said to the names. "We made them pay. But the cost—" A hand touched her shoulder. Lisa Martinez, also retired, stood beside her. "They didn't die for nothing," she said. "The galaxy is free because of their sacrifice." "Was it worth it? The billions we killed?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. But I know that if they hadn't died on that broadcast, if the Emperor hadn't made it a spectacle, we might have accepted servitude. Their deaths woke something in us, something terrible but necessary." They stood in silence. Two soldiers who had won a war but lost parts of themselves in the process. Around them, Kepler 442b bloomed with new life, human and alien colonists working together to build something better. In the capital of the new Galactic Council, Ambassador Wei Chen, niece of the murdered ambassador, addressed the assembly. She was human, but she spoke for all species. 5 years ago, the Galactic Empire learned that humanity could be monsters. Today, we show that we can be builders. The human relief fleet has arrived at Krylos Prime with food, medicine, and teachers, not as conquerors, but as neighbors. The war is over. The peace begins now. The assembly erupted in approval. Clicks, whistles, harmonics, and applause from 100 different species. The Kryllian representative, his form dim with shame, stood to speak. "Humanity has shown us mercy we did not deserve. I apologize for the crimes of my species. We accept your terms. We will learn to live as equals." It wasn't forgiveness. That would take generations. But it was a beginning. On Earth, in a small apartment, Master Sergeant Eva Rodriguez, no relation to the colonel, tucked her daughter into bed. The child, born after the war, had never known a galaxy ruled by fear. "Mama, tell me about the war," the girl asked. "Which part?" "The part where humans saved everyone." Rodriguez smiled sadly. "We didn't save everyone, baby. We couldn't. But we saved who we could, and we made sure it won't happen again." "How?" "By remembering. By teaching. By being strong enough to fight, but wise enough to stop. By showing the galaxy that humans are capable of terrible things. But we choose to do better." The child considered this. "Were we the good guys?" Rodriguez looked out the window at the stars, where human ships now flew in peace beside former enemies. "We were the necessary guys. Sometimes that has to be enough." As the child drifted off to sleep, Rodriguez thought about the 70,000, about the billions who had died after, about the choice humanity had made to become monsters to defeat monsters. They had won, but victory had come at a cost that would echo through generations. But in the end, the galaxy was free. The empire was gone, and humanity had proven that sometimes being primitive wasn't a weakness. It was a reminder of what you were willing to do to protect what you loved. The Galactic Empire had killed 70,000 humans on live broadcast. They had lived just long enough to regret it. In the depths of space, the memorial ship Remembrance drifted between stars. Its hull was inscribed with the names of every human who had died in the war. Inside, an eternal flame burned, tended by veterans who couldn't forget. They had sent the Marines. They had brought hell with them, and in the end, they had chosen to stop. That, perhaps, was humanity's greatest victory of all.